when I was 7 years old in first grade, they raped my best friend, Brandon Ploner, so horrifically, it tore a hole in his colon, and he went septic. So he died in 3 days. I went to some people who lived down the street in Little Lane. I lived on Little Lane and Harvey Road, the intersection, with my family, my 2 brothers and my mother and father. And I went down to some Christians that lived in the middle of Little Lane and told them about the death of my friend Brandon and the torture and rape that was going on in Arden. And he went to the police, and the police said, "Oh, we know what's going on in Arden, but we can't do anything about it." I mean, there were families that lived there for generations of dark occultists, but the Bidens lived there for about 3 years. And Joe Biden went to the same high school that my brother John went to, Archmere Academy in Claymont, Delaware. My oldest brother James came home, and my brother John and I were in the bedroom, and my brother James said, "I just met this guy Joe Biden, and he's going to be a big deal someday." And this is probably 1965. And Joe Biden was chosen by the cult, probably 1960, something like that. They liked what they saw with him, and they trained him to be a politician. They use hand signals, they use phraseology, they use certain drugs and chemicals to keep rebooting the programming, to keep you locked under as a slave. And my mother turned back to the back seat and said to my brother John and I, "If you don't like what we're doing, we'll just kill you and throw your body in the woods." And my brother John said to my mother, "Go ahead, I don't care." And I chimed in, "Yeah, go ahead, kill us." One thing I like about the dark occult is they totally forget about the power of the spirit of humanity, of love. That's a bad thing when you forget about the spirit of love and the power that when love is energized in a human being, incredible feats of bravery, strength, wisdom, caring, creation can happen.
Hello, and thank you for watching. Today we welcome Jay Parker, who is a whistleblower, a healer, and a former member of a generational Satanist family, and is a survivor of ritual abuse accordingly. Now, it is my understanding that Satanists have actually existed for a very long while throughout human history, even predating Christianity under different occultic names and religious traditions. So knowing this, we can try to wrap our minds around your testimony, Jay, and try to comprehend what these people are and how they have tried to control our world, even down to the local level. It may even help explain the current dystopian reality we see unfolding before us right now. But before we get into that, Jay, would you tell us a little bit more about yourself and what a generational Satanist is?
Well, I was born in 1956 in Philadelphia. My parents were both Illuminati members. My mother traced her satanic heritage back 3,000 years to the Amalekite people in Palestine. My father traced his Illuminati history back to the 1720s when three brothers joined the Illuminati and then came to America during the quote-unquote potato famine. And my father was ninth generation Illuminati. They attempted to make me 10th generation, but I rebelled. Basically, the old religion is based on child abuse and trauma. It's based in solipsism and also mysticism. They believe that forces outside yourself dictate your life. And it's a mess. But basically, the old religion is a religion based on traumatic mind control. And you can see it in the people that have gone through it. Basically, there's 40 million dark occult old religion in America today. They control the banks, the government, academia, everything of importance in the media. And Donald Trump, I think, possibly is trying to fight them and expose them. He, unlike any other president, passed 9 anti-child trafficking laws. And one of the pillars of the old religion, the religion of Molech, is pedophilia. And when you have 40 million adepts, you need lots of children to satisfy the pedophilia and the child sacrifice. Basically, there is 800,000 children missing in America every year. The FBI admits that 550,000 go missing every year. So if the FBI is admitting that over 500,000 children disappear every year, you can believe that it's probably twice as bad as that. That's about, a summary of the old religion. It's all based in mind control during the programmable state through rape, torture, drugging, satanic blood rituals, human sacrifice. The synaptic pathways of the mind are warped. And so with that warping of the synaptic pathways in the brain, then you get a imbalance chemically. And so these people have no empathy. When they go through 7 years of torture and rape, basically they come out and they get the third brainwave pattern and come out of a hypnagogic trance. And to learn more about the programmable state, I would recommend the work of Dr. Bruce Lipton. He's an expert in the field of epigenetics. He's also a great teacher of many things about things that would make you know thyself. And the old classical religions, pre-Council of Nicaea, on the front of the temple was always a sign that said, know thyself. And that's the key to life.
Wow, Jay, you just gave us a lot of information, and it's hard to know where to begin. But if we are going to try, can we first ask if all Satanists consider themselves Illuminati, or is that just one fashionable sector?
No, I don't believe so. To get into quote unquote the Illuminati, you actually have to be, I would say, higher up in the food chain as far as the religion goes. Satanism, Luciferianism is much like Christianity. It came from the Middle East thousands of years ago, moved into Europe and then over into America, much like Christianity. The old religion of Molech basically is passed down from father to son, from mother to daughter. And that's where most people get their religious mooring from. It's basically from their parents.
Can you tell us about your parents?
Well, both my parents were school teachers. They both they met each other in the early 50s and late 40s. They were going to a school called Dickinson College in Carlisle, Pennsylvania, which I believe is a CIA Illuminati college. Many of the people my mother knew from college were in the cult. And considering the history of both my parents, I would say, why did they choose Dickinson College? I mean, it's an excellent school. Don't get me wrong. But awful lot of dark occultists going to school there. And of course, it's in Carlisle, Pennsylvania, which is right by the War College. And also, Carlisle Group is George Herbert Walker Bush's corporation for military skullduggery. I'm just saying a little wave hello. That's why they named their military corporation Carlisle Group.
Well, that seems to be way too coincidental. Can you tell us what happened?
There are no coincidences.
Yes, that's what I've believed that for a very long time. Would you be able to tell us more about your parents and what happened? What role did they play in the cult, and how did that affect you?
Well, my mother was a mind control specialist for the DuPont family. She taught, they were both teachers. She taught at the exclusive pilot school in northern Wilmington, Delaware, and taught John DuPont, mind controlled him. Basically, as far as I can tell, the entire school is run by dark occult, and she did a number on John DuPont, who died in 2013, who was the heir to the DuPont fortune, and she used a high-speed spinning device, which causes a very deep hypnotism, knock you out in less than 30 seconds. Well, less than 10 seconds, really, if you're conditioned like I was. My father had access to this device from Buzz Ware, the head of the cult, in Arden when we lived in Arden, Delaware, a Illuminati village in northern Delaware, which was founded in 1900, along with the sister town of Rose Valley, Pennsylvania. Both are Marquis of Hell Illuminati villages, and they reside each town on either side of the Arcadian ley line, so that during high satanic rituals, blood rituals, they can pour that terror right into the ley lines and work together, poisoning the morphogenic field. Now, my mother, all I can say about her was she endured horrific electroshock torture by her parents. When someone is hit with high voltage direct current on their skin with a cattle prod or some other device, it'll sometimes, quite a few times, produce a mole at that point of contact. and my mother had massive skin moles on her back. And I always wondered about that. And I have a mole on my face from getting hit with a cattle prod by buzzware.
You know, if moles have a correlation to electricity and they also have a correlation to the sun, and the sun is a wonderful source of electricity, that wouldn't surprise me in the least, right?
No, not really. I just want people to understand that there's a story about Ben Franklin at Bedroom Hospital when he was in London, and he was working with Dr. Faraday, and they were electroshocking people who were standing in tubs of water with direct current, which they called wavies. And they literally destroyed so many people. Bedlam Hospital was full of insane people. If you get abused with direct current shock, it overloads your brain, and that's why they banned the use of shock treatment, because the damage it does.
You once mentioned to me that you had been electroshocked by the cult in an effort to destroy your memory that would incriminate them, and it gave you a condition, a medical condition. Would you be able to tell us about that?
Yes, when I was 7 years old in first grade, they raped my best friend, Brandon Ploner, so horrifically. It tore a hole in his colon, and he went septic. And they sent the town veterinarian, Bernie Brockman, the second day Brandon was sick, to try to help him, but the infection had already progressed too far. So he died in 3 days. I went to some people who lived down the street in Little Lane. I lived on Little Lane and Harvey Road, the intersection, with my family, my 2 brothers and my mother and father. And I went down to some Christians that lived in the middle of Little Lane and told them about the death of my friend Brandon and the torture and rape that was going on in Arden. And he went to the police, and the police said, "Oh, we know what's going on in Arden, but we can't do anything about it." And that's because in the 1930s, according to my mother, they murdered 3 police in rapid order because the police were trying to investigate the Arden cult. And they got a message to the police, "Do you want some more?" And the answer was no. And from that day, Arden has been left alone by the police. In fact, the police have actually helped the cult when they have a problem.
Helped? Are there cult members presumably in the police department? I imagine there's a lot of corruption in all the police departments. Why wouldn't there be?
Well, the Illuminati make sure that they have their people dispersed in every key lever of power in the society, whether it's academia, media, religion. They put their people, because they're only 10 to 15% of the population. According to myself, Leo Zagami, Stuart Swerdlow, we all say it's probably around 15% of the American population is generational Satanist.
How can we know that for sure? That's an intimidating number. That's like we see them at the grocery store kind of number.
Well, we're talking about more in excess of 1 in 10. But if you read the book by Fritz Springmeier, Blood bloodlines of the Illuminati. If you look at the work of Mark Passio, or look at some of my YouTubes, or lectures that free your mind, it's pretty easy to understand. 11% of the American public is fundamental Christian. Okay? That go to church more than once a week. Now, my mother told me in 1963 that the Illuminati was 12% of the population. Now, whether it's gone up or gone down, I don't personally know. But I figure that it's increased. And Stuart Swerdlow says it's probably around 15%. When they killed Brandon, my best friend in first grade, and I couldn't get help from the police, even though the neighbor went to them, they took me to the CIA psychologist that was handling my MK Ultra mind control, and they shocked me until I didn't even know my name, because they wanted to remove the short-term memory of the murder of my friend.
Did it work?
Oh, absolutely. Then they put me through 4 months of extreme trauma-based slave programming. And I didn't, that was back in early November, and I didn't go outside until April of the following year.
How did you eventually remember all of this stuff if their procedure had worked?
Well, the thing is, I recovered my memories after basically my brain healed. It took roughly 40 years, but the memories were there. The memories are in the field. Everything, all information is in the morphogenic field. And what we do with our brains is we develop the antenna to go get that information. Our consciousness is in the field. It's not in our brain. So there's a lot of really bizarre quantum science stuff that's coming out and showing us that this is a virtual reality.
Holographic Universe, if you've ever read that book.
Excellent book by Michael Talbert. And another good book is My Big Toe and My Theory of Everything. And it talks about the virtual reality. But essentially, I grew up in Arden, Delaware. I was 3 years old when we moved there from Pennsylvania. And 90% of the people there, when I was there in the 60s and early 70s, 90% were generational Satanists, dark occult. And they always kept about 10% of the people in Arden, an incorporated town, that are not cult, so that the people in the cult can practice their acting and their persona and learn how to act around normal people.
Well,
you need practice.
You've given me a lot of questions. I wanted to go back to one of them, since you said your brain healed. Do you still have the medical condition that was caused by all that electroshock? Was it petit mal epilepsy?
Yes. I haven't had a seizure in several years.
Oh, that's good.
I believe it's because of my vegetable diet. I wouldn't call myself a super vegan or anything like that, but I am weaning myself off of eggs in the near future. And I guess I'm going to go primarily vegetarian.
Interesting.
It's just that when you do research and you see that we have a very long, extended intestines, then that's what plant eaters have, not meat eaters. Meat eaters have a very small intestinal tract, but plant eaters have a long intestinal tract. And then when you find that a lot of people have cured themselves of cancer, MS, and all sorts of diseases simply by going on a diet rich in green leafy vegetables, broccoli, and such. And essentially, if you eat organic and you stop eating junk, because all of our food is sprayed with glyphosate, Roundup, that's commercial, and that was first introduced as a antibiotic, and when it didn't really work that way, they decided to use it in GMO food and also conventional food as a weed killer, because basically it'll suck the water out of practically anything. And they've gotten to the point now where they're spraying glyphosate on crops just as a desiccant to get rid of any moisture so they don't have a mold or a mildew problem on the crops once harvested.
Well, I think we can all agree that eating clean, regardless of if it's vegetarian or not, is absolutely critical to health in general. But I
without eating properly, you're not going to wake up in other ways. When you stop poisoning yourself, it has a huge ramification in the way you think and feel. So it's up to you not to learn about chemical additives in the food like glyphosate. And I mean, they just did a study where they found that glyphosate causes epigenetic damage.
Is this glycophosphate, or I don't know if I'm saying this correctly?
What?
At any rate, I thought it was glycophosphate, but I don't have a dictionary in front of me.
Well, I'm not the greatest when it comes to the English language. But I call it glyphosate, but it could be glycophosphate. But it's Roundup. But they just came out with a study that showed that rats that are exposed to glyphosate are genetically damaging their offspring 3 generations down the line. And what are we doing?
Much worse. I'm sure we're doing much worse, and that doesn't help our physical or spiritual abilities.
Well, we're under attack by the dark occult. And they're Georgia Guidestones saying that they would reduce the population of Earth down to 500 million people. They're not joking.
Did they create the Georgia Guidestones, or how do you know?
Oh, absolutely.
Did your mother tell you about the Georgia Guidestones? I was actually going to ask you about that.
No. They didn't get put up until the 80s. But no, the people that study occult ritual and symbology, it's a dark occult monument, for sure. Well, and the rumor is that Ted Turner had it put up, but it's just a rumor.
Well, it would make sense with a lot of the current world events. But before we jump into that, I wanted to go quickly back to MK Ultra, because you mentioned that you were a monarch experiencing MK Ultra, and a lot of our viewers may not have heard of that or know what that is. Would you be able to explain it?
Well, after World War II, thousands of Nazi scientists snuck over and were taken into the American scientific community and government by Alan Dulles, the head of the CIA. And when they were culling through the Nazis, if they had a file on a particular Nazi scientist or politician or spy that the CIA, Alan Dulles' CIA, wanted to bring into the American government and bring over to America, they would put a paperclip on the file. And so it was known as Operation Paperclip after World War II. And thousands upon thousands of Nazi mind control specialists, Gestapo, Werner von Braun, the head of NASA's rocket program, was a Nazi scientist that developed the V2 rocket. So we got a lot of Nazis. The man who wrote the 1947 National Security Act, which formed the CIA and the NSA, was General Wilhelm Gehlen. And he worked with the CIA until he retired in the 50s. And Gehlen was, considered, they gave him a big party at the CIA when he retired. That's all I got to say.
Can you tell us how long you were subject to this cult before you left?
After they electroshocked my brain when I was 7 years old, Gordon Pizer, he was the University of Pennsylvania trained CIA psychologist that monitored all the monarchs and the MK Ultra children in northern Wilmington and I guess southeastern Pennsylvania, if they were near him. But he, what I'm trying to say with MK Ultra is the reason it's called MK Ultra Mind Control is it's Mind Control Ultra was what the Nazis named it in the concentration camps and the Nazi hospitals. The program of mind control that they were using, a mixture of modern scientific techniques and old occult trauma-based mind control techniques. And so that's where you get the MK Ultra. It's German Mind Control Ultra.
Okay.
I believe the number is in the 50s and 60s, the number of children who went through the MK Ultra program, roughly about 3 million.
All right. And you went through this program until when?
Well, until I was 7.
What happened then?
Well, when I rebelled, when they killed my best friend, Brandon Ploner, and when I was ramping up my brainwave pattern, because we all start to get our third brainwave pattern and come out of the hypnagogic trance, I was never cult, but I was rebelling, and my brother John was rebelling. Even at like 4 or 5 years old, we were complaining about the rape and torture.
What happened when you complained?
Well, my father pulled the car over one Sunday morning because we would go to the Marquis of Hell church after we went to the Christian church on Sundays. And it was a beautiful fall day. And my brother John said, I don't want to go. And I said, yes, I don't want to go either. And my brother Jamie, who my eldest brother, James, who I believe went cold. He didn't say a word. But my father pulled the car over, and we were on the green, the main green in Arden. And we were heading to the Candlelight Dinner Theater, because that underneath the Candlelight Dinner Theater was Buzz Ware's Church of the Marquis of Hell. My parents pulled the car off the road, and my mother turned back to the back seat and said to my brother John and I, if you don't like what we're doing, we'll just kill you and throw your body in the woods. And my brother John said to my mother, go ahead, I don't care. And I chimed in, yeah, go ahead, kill us. Now, we're 4.5, 5.5.
Brave.
It's not just bravery. It's like when you come into this place, for the most part, a lot of us, especially if we're older souls, we're pretty much set in our ways as far as whether we're susceptible to evil or whether we're good souls. And so my parents shut up and kept driving.
Wow. Then what happened? What happened to your brothers?
Well, my one brother, John, died in a house fire when he was 63. But he eventually complained about the cult when he was about 16, and they did a number on him, and he spent his entire life, quote unquote, schizophrenic. But they did a blood ritual on him, and the cult knows how to move between dimensions. And in certain blood rituals, they put a person in trance and move them into another dimension. And they didn't get my brother's whole consciousness back from that other dimension. And he was a drug addict and an alcoholic. All his life he struggled.
Did he leave the cult when he basically became insane when he was a teenager, or was he?
No. He simply was complaining at 16 about the pedophiles and the abuse in Arden, Delaware, and his best friend Michael Connor and his best friend Donnie Holcomb set up a blood ritual event, and they botched the ritual, the satanic ritual, and my brother came back as a basket case. Basically, my mother said to Michael Connor when he dropped off my brother, and this is when he was about 16, and my brother walked in the door, shuffled in the door, and he was totally a zombie. And my mother looked at Mike Connor and said, oh, great, you botched it. Meaning it was there was a set ritual to get people back into their programming, to reboot their programming.
But they just made him insane instead.
Well, if you mess it up, because when you're taking people and putting them in trances, putting their consciousnesses in different dimensions, you better know what you're doing and do it right. Because if you screw up the frequency, you're going to screw up the ritual. And my mother looked at Mike Connor. She knew exactly what she was looking at when she saw that my brother was a zombie, aka schizophrenic. Oh, John went schizophrenic. No, he didn't. He went to a human sacrifice ritual, not of his free will, but his best friend set him up because they were cult. He didn't know it. I didn't realize they were cult until I went to the Arden Fair in 2001. Just saying.
Sounds like you guys were surrounded by cult members. And in that sense, at what age did you get out of the cult and how?
Well, I was never a cult member.
Right. But how did you get out from under their influence, I suppose?
Well, that didn't happen until I was accidentally triggered by a witch in around 2001.
What do you mean by witch?
I mean someone who dabbles in the dark occult.
Okay. So someone not super benevolent then, in that case.
No. Knowing her history, I would say she's not a benevolent person. But everyone knew. I mean, Philadelphia has got many Illuminati here. This is a major center for the dark occult. It's energetically, spiritually, historically. My mother said that the Illuminati are taking the energy of the mound building Indians and mixing their black magic with it and pouring it into the ley line conjunction that's here. Because behind Carpenter's Hall, there are 6 ley lines that intersect. And it's a major thing. Our world has a morphogenic field of 52 waveforms. And if you can throw the energy of Stockholm Syndrome and dark occult mind control and terror into the morphogenic field, then people literally walk around hypnotized. And that's what's going on right now with the help of the media and the subliminals and the programming through false religion and school. It's indoctrination. It's not education.
I can agree with you there. I wanted to ask you, this is probably a very long, your answer to this would probably be very long, but.
Well, I'm trying to keep focused on what you're asking me, but I go off on tangents. And I just want people to know I operate through a stream of consciousness mentation.
And we benefit from that as well. And I'm sure many of our viewers want to know, and you've given us a lot of information already, but what happened to you? What kinds of things happened to you by way of the cult, your parents? What did your days look like?
Well, my mother talked to me about in vitro shocking of the fetus. And the dark occult uses electroshock a lot to traumatize children. Really, it speeds up the terror. But one of the things the dark occultists do is they high voltage DC electric. They'll shock the pregnant mother, at the womb to shock the fetus so that the traumatizing of the person begins even in vitro. So the warping of the synaptic pathways, the just you'd have to know Dr. Bruce Lipton's work, but whatever happens to the child in the womb, if they're loving lovingly, good vibes, good food, they're going to grow a larger brain. Okay. But if there's, and this, the mother shares with the baby all the chemicals of her life. And so if the mother experiences terror or abuse, then those chemicals that are made in the hippocampus affect the baby also. So the baby can be conditioned through the mother to begin the MK Ultra mind control by abusing the mother to send those chemicals to the fetus. And they do that. As my mother said about in vitro shocking, she said, it hurts like a bitch.
Sounds like this happened to her while she was pregnant with you.
Oh, absolutely.
Once you were born, what happened to you? Do you remember?
Well, my first memory of it as a child is my father forcing me to fillet him in the cradle. And my mother was behind him, looking over his shoulder, radiating total Marquis of Hell, devil spirit hate, while my father had his penis in my mouth and was enjoying himself sexually. And then once he ejaculated, he would then physically torture me.
Wow.
And in a second, he would turn from a man enjoying sexual pleasure to a person full of rage and hate. And
how old were you at this point? You were in the cradle.
Might have been 3 months old.
You have a memory back that far. That's very unusual.
This story that people don't remember until they're 3 years old is a Illuminati controlled psychiatric lie. There's a lot of people that remember things before they're 3.
Mm. I believe that. I do. I have a memory predating when I was 3 as well. I don't believe it went back as far as you do, but I absolutely do remember things myself.
Nothing is lost as far as energy, and nothing is lost as far as information. Everything goes into the Akashic record. Everything goes back to source. Each person transfers 44 million bits of information a second. It goes right back to source. And Creator doesn't forget anything. So what I'm saying, everything people are experiencing, what after you die, you have a life review. Now, millions of people have talked about this. Whether they're near-death experiencers or they're reincarnated people. But they talk about a life review. It's talked about in many religious systems that after you die, your life is going to be, they're going to look at your life and see what you did with it. Well, if that information just goes poof, disappears into nowhere, how can you have a proper life review? Yeah. I'm just saying. No information is being lost in this system.
Understood there. So this torture, obviously you'll probably have better memory recall when you're an older child. How often did the torture occur? Was it every day? Was it every week?
You never knew when your parents were going to shift from normal human being psychology and spirituality and go right into full-blown devil spirit manifestation. Because when you go cult and they ask you when you get your third brainwave pattern and you can differentiate for yourself, they ask you if you want to go cult. And if you do, then you continue being involved with these satanic rituals. If you don't want to go cult, they allow that and they say, well, that's it for you and the cult. And when you grow up, you can move out of Arden and go wherever you want to go.
Is that what happened to you?
Long as you don't talk about what they do.
Was that your path?
Well, my parents got divorced and my father moved to New Jersey. And so I moved with my father at one point. I went back and forth between my mother and father after they got divorced.
Why did they get divorced if they were joined in this evil arrangement? I imagine there was a lot of arranged.
My father was a out of control mass murderer and pedophile.
And she wasn't?
No, she was a torturer, pedophile, and mass murderer, but she knew how to not get in the papers.
So basically it was bad PR. He was giving you guys bad PR.
Yeah, my father got caught violating the Mann Act, which is bringing underage minor and having sex with them across state lines. And he spent a couple months in jail for that.
Really?
Yes. It didn't stop his teaching career.
There's a lot of things that can stop teaching careers. I've heard of a lot of teachers that have been abusive toward children and they're just working somewhere else. That's
right. All you got to do is move across state lines. And even if you get convicted of pedophilia, just pick up where you left off.
Well,
this is a satanically controlled society.
It's starting to seem that way more and more every day. And there's a lot of questions we have for you in that realm. But I would like to ask you, what do you think happened to your oldest sibling? You said that you thought he joined the cult. Are you in contact with him?
Oh, no, I stopped all contact with my family. Basically, when I got triggered and my memories of the abuse came back around 2001. So I had nothing to do with my family.
Well, how did your contact with your parents end?
Well, after I woke up to the, satanic nature of my family, I had done extensive work for my father on a big brownstone he owned. He's dead now, in Camden, New Jersey, across from the law school. And I turned it into an architectural digest kind of place because I'm a trained cabinet maker and carpenter and electrician, plumber. I really know everything there is when it comes to building. All I have to say is my father abused me financially so much through working on his house, I pulled away. I just couldn't believe what he was doing. So basically I got an apartment in Philadelphia. And because I was not in contact with him, he was not able to drug me or use certain key phrases and reboot my programming. They use hand signals, they use phraseology, they use certain drugs and chemicals to keep rebooting the programming to keep you locked under as a slave. And I pulled away from him because he was just over abusing me financially.
But you hadn't quite yet remembered all the other stuff at this point.
No, I hadn't remembered all the other stuff. But one of the reasons, the witch that I had a date with, what she wanted to do was tweak my slave programming, because everyone in Philadelphia knew that I was a mind control slave. That was cult. And I went from one Illuminati businessman to the other. It was just a ridiculous life. But long story short, when she used my mother's #1 programming phrase to get into the architecture of my mind control programming, she opened the file, and this is in 2001, but she didn't know the specific architecture of my mind control programming or what phrases or hand signals to use to insert new programming. She kind of like opened the file, but she didn't know what to do with the program after that. So we didn't hit it off. She went her way, I went my way. But that weekend, all my memories from 1 to 7 came flooding back to me.
And then how did you handle your parents after that?
Well, I didn't see my father. My mother had already passed. And my father, I knew enough to stay away from him.
So you just didn't talk to him ever again?
He came over to my apartment, trying to get me to work for him for free, for peanuts. And I just said, yeah, I'll talk to you in about a year. And he started crying. He said, what did I do? What's wrong? Because I didn't know my oldest brother, Jamie, was cult. But I was kind of telling Jamie what I was going through, remembering and, revisiting our childhood. And my brother, Jamie, when I said, don't you want to remember and understand what they did to us? And he started crying and said, I don't want to think about it. And, typical, BS.
Right. Now, when you were under the influence of the cult, do you remember being put in a position of hurting anybody else since you were a child?
No, I don't have any memories of that. In fact, during the rituals underneath the candlelight dinner theater, I even took beatings and abuse for my friends to protect them.
Would it work, or were they were likely just gonna hurt your friends anyway, right?
No, they actually, that was fine with them. As long as somebody got the torture.
Can you tell me can you tell us what your most devastating experience was while you were in the cult?
Well, I wish you wouldn't use that term.
Sorry, when you were under the influence of the cult, can you tell, or controlled, obviously you were a child, what was your most devastating experience?
Well, the worst is, of course, the human sacrifice. That's the worst. Because when they axe murder somebody, it's bloody. It's nasty.
Did that happen often?
I have inklings that I was there when it happened several times, but every generational Satanist will have one specific human sacrifice done for them to try to, shall we say, seal the deal with the satanic mind control. When you're about 5, they do a one-on-one ritual with you and the person being sacrificed, and they put you in a trance and then butcher the victim, and then they bring you out of the trance and say, look what you did. And the arms were chopped off of this young girl, and I don't want to talk anymore about it.
Okay.
But they woke me up just as she was, her last breath. They pulled out one of her eyes, and the eye that was still in looked at me, and I looked at her, and I could tell her spirit was still there, and then it wasn't.
Wow. Can you maybe now instead tell us your most uplifting experience that you had during those dark times?
Well, I can say that children that grow up in a satanic cult setting, they have pretty intense friendships and camaraderie of the children, because you kind of stick together because you know what the parents are up to. So you have pretty intense, good friendships. You really enjoy the childhood friends you have, because the adults, what they're doing to you is something that, we would talk about it occasionally amongst ourselves. But for the most part, it was, unless we were forced to be in the Marquis of Hell Church, we didn't give it any attention or energy. We tried to live and love and be human on our own outside what they were doing.
I remember watching some other interviews with you when you talked about an experience of some benevolent divinity when you were faced with some seriously dark stuff when you were a kid with the cult. Would you want to tell us about that?
Well, before they took me to Gordon Pizer and wiped my mind with, electroshock, my father took me to the Church of the Marquis of Hell, and I was sitting in a chair underneath the candlelight dinner theater, and it was just my father and Buzzware, and it had already come out, the scandal of me getting the Christian neighbors down the street to go to the police. So it was a big to-do in Arden, because they were trying to cover up the murder of this child. And here, I'm running around trying to get the police. So I'm sitting in a chair about 10 feet away from Buzzware, who his name adorns the current village center in Arden. How do you like that?
I'd like a picture of it is what I would like to see it.
Yes, the Buzzware Village Center. But getting back to what had happened with the benevolent beings, I'm sitting in this chair, and my father is saying to Buzzware, let's just kill him and throw his body in the woods. And then my father and Buzzware turn and look at me, And a voice inside my head said, turn around. And by this time, I was pretty fed up because I knew the police weren't going to help. I mean, the neighbor down the street told me the police weren't going to help. So I was pretty upset. I was sick of it. And this voice said in my mind, turn around, look behind you. And I said, no, I'm not cooperating. You know, F all of you, F everything. I've had enough. And I knew it was two angels or higher dimensional beings behind me. I could feel their presence. And my father and Buzz Ware looked at me, and their jaws dropped, and their eyes got as big as saucers. And Buzz Ware said to my father, we can't kill this one. So obviously there's some rules in this consciousness experiment, in this holodeck. And because I had stood up and fought the cult at such an early age, I guess the higher dimensional beings said, I deserve to live because I wasn't a coward. And I've always said that God respects bravery and doesn't respect cowards.
You could say that 100 times. That is a problem we are seeing in this world right now, is a deficit of bravery. What a wonderful story. Thank you for that. We needed to hear that because, as you know, very well know, this testimony is extremely dark. So thank you for that bit of light.
Well, I mean, if you want some more darkness, how about the fact that on Harvey Road for 3 years, there was a family called Biden.
Tell us about that.
Oh, I'll tell you even more than that. After Joe Biden's father's business collapsed in Scranton, Pennsylvania, he moved the family to Arden, Delaware. Okay.
So they lived there.
Yes, for 3 years they lived in Arden, Delaware, the Biden family. And a lot of different families, dark occult families, would come in and live in Arden for 3-4 years with their children, and then they'd move away because it was a programming and training center for the dark occult, for the Illuminati. And, you know, limited number of spaces. I mean, there were families that lived there for generations of dark occultists, but the Bidens lived there for about 3 years. And Joe Biden went to the same high school that my brother John went to, Archmere Academy in Claymont, Delaware. But one day when this is before they electroshocked my mind, so I had to be 5 or 6. My oldest brother, James, came home, and my brother John and I were in the bedroom, and my brother James said, I just met this guy, Joe Biden, and he's going to be a big deal someday. And this is probably 1965. And Joe Biden was chosen by the cult, probably 1960, something like that. They liked what they saw with him, and they trained him to be a politician.
Well, that answers one of my questions. I was going to say, is the deep state that everyone is so concerned about right now, is that one and the same with this cult?
Oh, absolutely. The CIA and the intelligence services are directly controlled by the Council of 13 and the Council of 5.
What is
direct
that?
Illuminati control.
Okay. You are one of the few whistleblowers that is still alive. Why do you think you are still alive?
Well, Kathy O'Brien's still alive. Bryce Taylor. They both wrote books about their experiences in Project MK Ultra. Something I haven't done. But I believe this is a consciousness experiment. And we get to choose as awareness, eternal awareness, whether we're going to manifest good or evil. And this is the construct set up to where, as spirit beings, as awareness, we can get a body, we can experience three-dimensional physicality, and we can decide for ourselves whether we want to choose good or evil. And the reason I'm alive is the Illuminati want a certain amount of people to tell the truth, like Fritz Springmeier.
Why?
Because it's part of the lesser magic of the Illuminati. If they tell you the evil that they're doing and you do not rise up against it, then you are complicit.
We see a lot of complicit people these days not rising against evil.
Well, I think looking at the elections, I would say that's true. There's a lot of people in government that don't have any respect for the law.
Very clearly. I wanted to ask you, if I know that you weren't really part of the cult, even though you know a lot about them, do you know what they believe is the true nature of reality? What are their beliefs?
Well, my father says that this is hell. And so you might as well do what the devil does, because this is hell.
Do you believe?
Well, that's not what it is. You need to study what this construct really is. It is a consensus reality of all 7.5 billion people, their hearts and minds put together as a supercomputer to actually, the source is creating exactly the reality that our 7.5 billion hearts and minds is thinking of and feeling. So the most important thing, my mother said to me, to the Illuminati is the collective subconscious. And that's why they have forced schooling. That's why they promote television. It's all programming. It's all, they want to get into your head and they want to program you. And if you look at religion, basically most religions are what Mark Passio calls the last cul-de-sac before truth. You almost get there, but not quite.
It's a brilliant way of putting it. Kind of, well, the way I like to put religion is truth mixed with bullshit.
Well, it's like they're in all the old ancient writings, the Quran, the Torah, the Old and New Testament, there's more than enough correct spiritual laws and information to get a person to wake up and realize that they have to go inside themselves, which is what every avatar has ever said, whether it's Jesus Christ or Buddha or Krishna. Go within, bring what is within out, and you will succeed. And meditation, prayer, learning proper natural spiritual laws and living by them, you know, living for something greater than yourself, living for justice.
That seems like a great purpose of life for people who are benevolently oriented. But this cult, what do they think the purpose of life is if they think this is hell?
Climb up the satanic pyramid. I mean, totem pole. Every lifetime, just do what?
What do they get if they get to the top of their satanic ladder in their perspective?
I don't think they really, they have no value of life. They don't value life, whatever. And the whole Illuminati, dark occult mindset right now is, of course, transhumanism. And if you get further up the power pyramid, then you've got a chance to get one of those new transhumanist bodies and live forever.
They're looking for immortality.
So. Oh, absolutely.
Interesting if they if they just saw that the soul was immortal, that would solve that problem. At least that's my belief system. So this might not be something you can answer, but do you know if there's any way we can learn more about their seriously deranged belief systems, any holy books, anything like that we can look at?
Well, I think Steve Quayle is somebody who's written quite a few books about the transhumanism aspect. And nobody teaches natural law and some fundamental must-know aspects of human psychology as good as Mark Passio from whatonearthishappening.com. And I recommend, if you want to get on the center path and wake up your consciousness and succeed in this experiment that's being run. I mean, the New Testament says this is all for the increase in God. Well, how do you increase infinity? Well, you're looking at it. It's experience. Now, Mark Passio at Mark Passio, whatonearthishappening.com. He's got some videos like Natural Law, the Real Law of Attraction. It's an 8-hour lecture. But watch that 2 hours, an hour a night for 8 days. Watch it several times. And that will change your mind. The truth destroys satanic mind control. So when the more you get truth in you, the more you line up with the higher vibration of Creator. And then you get stronger and stronger and stronger because you're growing in doing the truth and thinking the truth and feeling the truth. And the truth is, we are not separate from the Godhead. We have 44 million bits of information transferring every second between us and Source. So we're not alone. And if the Godhead is love, it's we who have the mind control problem that we don't believe that the universe loves us. We're the ones under mind control.
Very well put. And speaking of the mind and all of the phenomena related, I remember watching some other talks that you've done speaking about the various rituals you've been a part of and the visions that you have seen, and also knowing that a lot of these cult members use hallucinogens in their rituals.
Oh, big deal.
What do you...
Big deal.
Right. People might suggest that a lot of the visions that are seen by these Satanists are simply just being facilitated by the hallucinogenic drugs that they're on, or others might contend that the hallucinogenic drugs are simply enabling them to see what has already been there and has always been there. What do you think about that?
Well, there was one ritual where, of course, I was drugged, and they put my heart into the temple of Molech. And I remember having a vision of the temple of Molech. And what's really strange, I saw an exact, detailed drawing, perfect, of the temple of Molech that I saw when I was like 5 years old, having that satanic ritual performed on me. And I saw a picture of that on the web after I woke up from my mind control programming. So I remember the vision of the Temple of Molech. And then, it's funny to see that exact same thing on the internet.
You're not the only one who's seen it.
Absolutely. And so everything is frequency. As Nikola Tesla said, everything is frequency, vibration, right?
Right.
So it's just different levels of information and frequency. So, I mean, what does Dr. Joe Dispenza says? He says that the 52 waveform morphogenic field of almost infinite density and infinite energy is a field of all possibility. It's a limitless field. The only thing that limits this field is human imagination.
Getting into more of the trippy ideas, not to say this whole interview hasn't already been as such, do you think that anyone's idea of extraterrestrials, the reptilians, factors into this at all? As I have heard theories that these beings that people call demons are simply just resembling a different type of extraterrestrial called a gray or reptilian or whatever. And people have been theorizing, okay, well, who are these beings, these angels, these demons that we see throughout history and throughout different religions throughout time? Like, they all seem to look the same. Or are these simply just beings of other worlds visiting our ancestors? And perhaps does the cabal, does this cult worship those beings as if they were gods?
Well, David Icke has done a few videos.
This is a lot like what he would talk about. I just thought I should throw that out there.
Well, he talked to a mother of darkness, and he produced a video, and I'm trying to remember her name, but I can't. But davidicke.com, you could find a video where David Icke has a high priestess of the Luciferians. She was a mother of darkness, which is a term for a high priestess of the Luciferians. And she gave a 2-hour interview, maybe longer, with David Icke, and talks in detail about a lot of the rituals and what the Luciferians believe. And it's really, really something to see. I focused most of my attention, of course, on solution think. I don't, cult schmaltz. I'm sick of the pedophiles and child killers. I'd rather talk about Dr. Joe Dispenza or Dr. Bruce Lipton or Kevin Trudeau's work. I don't want to talk about the evil ones. I want to talk about the people that are overcoming this and making the right choices. All I can say is Dr. Bruce Lipton is doing the best work to understand the physiology of your body and epigenetics and how energy and thoughts and feelings make your life. We broadcast to the field 4 million bits of information from our conscious mind every second, and we transfer 40 million bits of information from our subconscious. So in a collective consciousness reality, the subconscious is 10 to 1 more powerful than the conscious mind. So people need to clean up their subconscious, which in this society worldwide is given a solipsistic program of selfishness and lack of empathy and generally putting up with evil, which is not really the innate nature of the human soul.
On that note, how do you feel about the state of the world right now, considering that we seem to be entering a time where courage is hard to find and very nefarious organizations seem to be taking our collective freedoms worldwide? How do you see this as connected to the cults, and what do you think? Where do you think we're headed right now, and what can we do?
Well, we'll see if Donald Trump can get a second term.
That's definitely underway, and it's certainly an exhausting thing to listen for and watch for.
Well, a lot of people have said Donald Trump allowed all of this to happen so that basically everyone could see just how corrupt Washington, D.C. is. Because you're seeing the corruption of the governor of Georgia, you're seeing the corruption of the Supreme Court of the state of Pennsylvania, and on it goes. And we're seeing that the voting machines are controlled outside of America.
Germany?
So, well, Frankfurt is the ancestral home of the Rothschild family.
And who are the Rothschilds? Are they members of this cult?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay, just for those watching.
And, the Rothschilds, they started in Frankfurt, Germany, but they worked for Vatican. That the head of the snake has always been Vatican.
Have they infiltrated the Christian religion, or are they pretending to be Christians? So, right?
No, Christianity, the real Christianity, was destroyed at the Council of Nicaea in 325 AD, where they took all 35 books of the canon, threw it in the trash, and rewrote it and edited it to conform with the Roman emperor.
So would you say that the Christian or the pillars of the Christian religion are simply just Satanists masquerading as Christians at this point? I mean, in higher levels?
Well, I always, I spent one of my main altars was as a Christian, and I've been through a lot of different churches. And I have to say, the pastors up there are all compromised, and the little people down in the audience, a lot of them have the heart and the love of God in them. And status quo religion, if it was a threat to the corruption of the Illuminati, it would be illegal. Oh, that's right. Church is illegal now.
Church is illegal right now. That's one of the reasons I ask. Right.
What I'm saying is they're keeping people 6 feet away because the heart radiates 6 feet, so you don't want a commingling of energy, heart to heart,
Really?
between
That's the
people.
6 feet? That's
Yeah.
precisely six. Wow. Where does that come from? Is that something
Quantum
measured?
physicists have measured it.
Wow. So that is a very deliberate, non-random number when it very well seems like it's a random number, but it seems like a spiritual number more than an actual
Oh,
practical
absolutely.
scientific number.
Absolutely.
Wow.
Well, 6 feet is our immediate broadcast of our heart. Now, if you're enlightened, it's a lot bigger. But most people, it's 6 feet. And then, of course, the artificial intelligence facial recognition cameras like it when people are 6 feet away from one another. That's another point.
Easier to discern the facial.
Yeah. It's easier for AI recognition cameras to work when there's space between people.
On this topic, how have you been handling the COVID lockdowns and the mask mandates, knowing what you know about all of this?
Well, I have a mask, but it's a Guy Fawkes mask.
Well, that is, do you wear it out? What do you do?
No.
I don't wear a mask for anyone or anything, which makes my life extremely difficult. So I'm just curious if you are.
No, I haven't worn a mask yet.
Good for you. It's hard. I mean, there's a lot of people. It's hard to find hardliners out there because there's usually something someone will wear a mask for.
Well, there's no medical studies saying that the mask will protect you from COVID, and it's non-scientific. This is all a satanic mind control psyop. It has nothing to do with medical necessity. The only reason there are surgical paper masks is so doctors do not salivate in open surgeries and
fit into your wound, right? That seems
get
practical.
into your wound. Other than that, as far as viruses, no, masks do nothing.
Do you think there is a link between 5G technology and the cult and what's going on right now?
Well, I've said because of the chemtrails that we all have barium and strontium heavy metal poisoning and aluminum. So the cell towers are operating at, this is 4G, operating at 10 to 15% of energetic electrical capacity. And then they're bringing in 5G, which is a weapon system. So by the time they get this all set up and we have heavy metal poisoning from the chemtrails, I don't see any reason why the Illuminati won't be able to throw a switch and just kill everyone. And the people that live will be in the Valhallas underground. And the people on the surface will be eliminated through, cell tower disruption of their autonomic nervous system.
Do you think that's definitely going to, or nothing's definite, but do you think that's going to happen? Do you think that's
I'm just saying that if I'm thinking of how do you get to 500 million people worldwide? Well, I'm looking at all these cell towers and I'm saying, why is it that they built this system and it's only running at 10 to 15% of capacity energetically? And then the same with the 5G. I mean, the communication frequency for the cell wall is right next to the frequency picked out for cell towers. So they're right next to each other.
So this seems like the worst case scenario in your perspective, that they will crank up what's already been started.
I'm just saying, I'm not Dr. Evil, but I'm just saying it.
They could blame it on
Certainly
COVID-19, right? Everything that happens, oh, it's COVID-19, and that's the scapegoat, even though it's never been isolated, the virus itself.
Yeah, everybody puts down COVID-19, but hey, at least it cured the flu.
Right? God, that's no one can get sick anymore without everyone getting terrified.
COVID, the SARS-2, COVID SARS-2 has never been isolated or purified, according to Koch's postulates. So they have no scientific proof it even exists.
But we do have those symptoms, which could be electrosmog, the 5G and whatever else.
It could be 5G smog. It could be any number of the hundreds of coronaviruses.
Right, right.
The PCR test, I mean, it's a joke. The whole thing's a joke because, as Dr. Fauci said, any PCR test where the cycles are above 30 is a guaranteed false positive. And in England and Canada, the health departments set their PCR cycles at 45.
So everything's a false positive at that point.
Right. This whole thing is a fraud for the New World Order, aka the Great Reset.
So your parents actually knew ahead of time about this. We spoke about this. Can you tell us what they told you about the New World Order plans way back when you were a kid?
Well, in 1963, they simply said, in about 50 years, it's going to get really, really bad. And then they laughed and they said, we don't care because we won't be here.
And that's all they really told you?
Basically that everyone was going to get thrown under the bus by the elite.
We're seeing that. We are
generational Satanists, rank and file also. Only the top creme de creme is going to pass through this culling of the herd.
A few months ago when we spoke, you had mentioned that this cult was cornered, but still formidable. Do you still feel that way? Do you think we stand a better chance now than when we talked a few months ago about this, or what do you think?
Well, certainly the corruption and censorship and control grid of like YouTube saying you're not allowed to talk about the election anymore. I mean, everybody is seeing this in your face. Like New York Post runs a story about Hunter Biden and his laptop, and it gets censored by Twitter. Well, millions of people see this, that the major players in information, government, religion, they're not being straight with us. They're lying to us. They're hiding things from us. And that's caused a lot of people to wake up. I mean, Donald Trump probably got over 80 million votes in this election. And they're claiming, of course, Biden got 80 million votes. It's a joke. But what I'm saying is, one thing I like about the dark occult is they totally forget about the power of the spirit of humanity, of love. That's a bad thing when you forget about the spirit of love and the power that when love is energized in a human being, incredible feats of bravery, strength, wisdom, caring, creation can happen. And they don't believe in love. They believe in power, brute power, and control. And they're about to get a lesson in Reality 101.
Your hopes are high then for us. You think we're going to make it? You think we're going to...
It doesn't matter. If you come into this holodeck and you go all in for love and all in for truth and all in for natural law, if your avatar gets destroyed and this construct gets destroyed, it doesn't matter, because your awareness and your soul is on good terms with the creator of everything. So I'm like, I hope we can straighten it out this time. This is probably the 5th or 7th age. According to my parents, they said we've had 5 to 7 worldwide ages previous to this one, worldwide civilizations that rose up and fell down, like Atlantis, right? And then, of course, John Lamb Lash, the comparative mythologist and Gnostic scholar, he says this is the 9th attempt at the human beings growing up and learning how to live properly. We've done this 8 times before and destroyed ourselves completely. Yeah.
Well,
this time, I think, because of the web and people, millions of people waking up to truth, I think there's a good shot that the human race will finally grow up and realize that natural law is the only law, and that self-responsibility, not collective consciousness, the collective communist ideology, but the 1776 ideology is the way to go. So I think we're going to find out in the next month or so, aren't we?
Indeed. And no matter what happens, and this is what I tell myself, it doesn't matter what the outcome is, because we still have personal responsibility as souls to be in alignment with our highest integrity and to do our part for this. This is a veritable war, in my perspective and in many people's perspective.
Absolutely. We may be in a hot civil war soon. I understand that you likely don't have all the answers, but in your perspective, what should we be doing, since you know the perpetrators very well, more than I do? What can be effective other than getting in the streets, activism, which not enough people are doing yet? What do you think we can do in the meantime to make this better? Well, the most powerful broadcaster and receiver of frequency and information in this collective consensus reality called Earth is the human being, is the individual. So if you enlighten yourself and free your mind and your heart and go within and seek higher realms of consciousness and become a person that is standing for self-sovereignty, self-determination, self-responsibility, freedom, natural law, you need to study Dr. Bruce Lipton's work, The Biology of Belief. You have to read that book. Dr. Bruce Lipton has plenty of YouTubes that you need to watch. You need to learn the work of Dr. Joe Dispenza. He and HeartMath Institute are doing brain mapping and energy field reading while people are meditating. They are finding out, they have found out, that at 0.1 hertz, the human brain becomes coherent with the energy field of what I would call the All-Father, or the ocean of love that's outside of space and time. And they're teaching people how to use their meditation techniques to get to the zero point 0.1 hertz coherent frequency. If you don't, How to Break the Habit of Being Yourself by Dr. Joe Dispenza, joedispenza.com, brucelipton.com. It takes years of study. Mark Passio, whatonearthishappening.com. All of Kevin Trudeau's great lectures, Your Wish is Your Command, are free on YouTube now. I mean, it would have cost you thousands of dollars. But now it's there for free. So
until they censor it, of course. So we should get on to watching.
No, because many of the men that knew how, and the Illuminati know that this is what I would call the frequency match game. Whatever you're broadcasting, it's coming back to you as your life. So if you raise your frequency, if you learn how to co-create with the divine field, life can be pretty sweet.
It sounds like you're asking our viewers to do a lot of spiritual work in addition to the practical work of standing up to this darkness. You have to stand up to that within.
If you're not 100% all in to growing your consciousness, growing your soul, that's why you're here. Between ultimate evil and ultimate good, to make a decision and grow your soul. So it takes a lot of work. Throw your TV away. It's straight from Satan.
More and more people are believing that now.
Well, I don't know what you can say. I mean, it's the meme of the subliminals for psychological manipulation and subconscious manipulation, the patent number. The meme has been all over social media for years, that they specifically set the television so that they could use audio and visual subliminals to mind control you, to be an obedient slave.
It's working for a lot of people.
You're going to sit there and everybody goes into a mild hypnosis when they watch television because of the flicker rate, and which of course was planned by the powers that should not be. So you go into a hypnosis watching a stupid television program, and then while you're watching this banal television program, digital audio and visual subliminals are being poured into your subconscious.
On that note, can you...
Lots of fun talking to me.
Well, it's wildly interesting, and I would love to know what your favorite accomplishments are doing all of this work for healing and whistleblowing. What do you feel the best about in your life's work so far?
Well, my proudest moment is when I get to counsel a satanic ritual abuse victim, and I take them from a basket case, and they get their life back.
Are you doing this work right now?
Yes. I mean, I have a website, thecenterpath.weebly.com. It has contact email on it. And if you're a satanic ritual abuse survivor and you need help, I do free counseling as a friend. And I must say that, I've gotten 12 people from Potential suicides to thanking me for the life that they're living now.
That's wonderful.
And takes work, takes time and effort, but you know, energy flows where attention goes. So if you put your attention on good things are going to manifest.
Great reminder for us after this very heavy couple hours of information. Did you want to tell us what else you're up to these days?
I'm joining Mark Passio's Great Work Network. About 30 people forming a new nexus point of alternative media.
Great.
Teaching and whistleblowing. But I have to say that when you sell out to natural law and make a commitment to creator and to life and justice and truth, the universe will come to your aid and back you up and teach you. Synchronistically, you'll learn what you need to learn. You got to have faith that there's a reason that you're here. And, people are taught they're just a accident of chemistry, and consciousness is just our physical bodies, the machinery. And I'm saying that if you go to whatonearthishappening.com, brucelipton.com, joedispenza.com, and you delve into, like, buy one book from Dispenza, How to Break the Habit of Being Yourself. Buy one book from Bruce Lipton, The Biology of Belief. Buy a couple DVDs like Natural Law, The Real Law of Attraction from Mark Passio at What on Earth is Happening. And you take those two books and a couple Mark Passio DVDs and you learn EFT. I mean, that's very important. Gary Craig teaches EFT. And if you go to my website, thecenterpath.weebly.com, and poke around, you'll see an EFT section. And learning EFT is the most important thing you could do for your subconscious. There's nothing like EFT.
What a wonderful reminder for me, as I have learned about it a long time ago, but need to brush up my memory and skills of it. So thank you for that. Is there anything else you would like to tell us before we part ways today?
No, I mean, other than I have my radio show on Revolution Radio, The Center Path, Thursday nights at 10 o'clock to midnight, and Matrix Warrior on Revolution Radio, Saturdays 12 to 2 in the afternoon.
Great. I will link to those underneath this video.
Okay.
Well, Jay, thank you so much for your story, for the light and the dark. And to our viewers, thank you for listening to this very poignant testimony. And please share if this moves you. And I say this to myself just as much as I say it to everyone else. Let us be brave. Let us do the right thing, regardless of how inconvenient it is. Let us choose the light, whatever form that light takes, no matter how hard it is. And until next time, cheers.
The planet's puppet masters almost surely have a plan. There's clearly maybe something there beyond the realm of man. And until you've thoroughly tested every last close-adjusted view, I find the more you think you know, the less you really do.
That's true, Dr. Zayas. Very well.
Where would we be without THC? 'Cause we know they're lying to us, just don't know the way.
right, Higherside Chatters, we've talked a ton about the dark undercurrents of the vast conspiracy for years now. Deep state mind control programs that have only gotten more sophisticated, environment-altering geoengineering campaigns that have only become more obvious, and multi-generational missions carried out by an oligarchy of elite bloodlines that have only gotten more absolute. Yes, it seems like the proverbial screws are tightening at an ever-increasing rate, but you can still get lost trying to see your way through the smoke and mirrors of a finely tuned propaganda machine aimed at diverting your attention from the darkest of dark corners. Well, lucky for us today, we have a guest who not only studies these dark corners, he's actually lived in them. His name is Jay Parker, and Jay was actually born into a multi-generational elite family of occult practitioners, and as a result was the victim of trauma-based mind control and ritual abuse in a large cult setting for the first 7 years of his life. He now speaks out about the elite's various campaigns against the people and the recovery and healing methods for satanic ritual abuse that have helped him on his own journey, and I'm super psyched to have him here. The great forger of spiritual and mental armor, cultivator of empowering knowledge, and educator of the masses, Jay Parker. Welcome to the Higher Side.
Well, thank you, Greg. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm a great admirer of your podcast. I really can't be too happy because there are a few people I admire who do podcasts, and you're definitely one of them.
Wow, man. Thank you.
Just want to say that, you're up there. I recommend everyone become a subscriber and give you some support because you are getting information out to people that will empower them and make them see reality as it truly is, rather than mainstream media pablum that isn't working for anybody anymore, is it?
Well, cheers to that. And you're just so kind. Thanks for saying that. And thanks for being here. Of course, anyone who's been following the alternative conspiracy world, they know that we've had various whistleblowers over the years that talk about their own ritual abuse and mind control experience. And they come with varying degrees of credibility. But I find you to be really the crown jewel, man, and one of the most honest, good-natured guys out there. And not to be weird, but when I listen to you talk about your experience, I can just kind of hear it in your voice that you have lived some shit. You've walked the long road of making peace with that, and it seems like you've come out stronger for it on the other side. But for people who haven't heard about your childhood, can you give the people some more context? What can you tell us about those early experiences and the family you were born into?
I think it's important when you listen to me to actually know what I grew up in, Greg, and what I learned being in a multi-generational satanic family. My parents, they actually were elite when it came to occult knowledge and occult ability in mind controlling people, raping and killing. They were something else. In fact, I'll get into it, but I'm going to say some things about my family that will truly frighten you. Mm-hmm. I'm serious. I can laugh at it now, Greg, because I've done so much healing work to myself. It's so far removed from me. Let me start with my personal history and walk it through. Don't want to jump around.
Sure.
All right. My personal history, I was born in 1956 outside of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. My parents were both generational Satanists. My mother traced her satanic lineage, mother to daughter, back 3,000 years to the Amalekite people in the Middle East that are spoken of in the Old Testament, with King Saul fighting the Amalekites. Very famous passage in the Old Testament where Jehovah God instructed King Saul to slay every Amalekite, man, woman, and child, and kill all the animals. And of course, the Israelis disobeyed. This was a actual teaching of true occult history that my mother gave me when I was about 3 years old. It's a great story, so I'll tell it. When King Saul and the Israelis disobeyed God and gathered up the Amalekite herds to use as sacrifice to Jehovah, in direct violation of what the prophet Samuel told King Saul to do, they were distracted. This is after the slaughter. They were gathering up the herds, and there was a caravan of Amalekite coming back from Egypt on a trading mission. Okay? Large caravan. They saw the slaughter in the Amalekite Valley, and they slipped away to Moab, which is present-day Jordan. And that's why, to this day, even though Jehovah gave Saul an order to get rid of these people, the Amalekite bloodline continues to this very day.
Hmm.
And, I'm sitting there listening to my mother tell this story, and I'm not looking at it from a Christian or Judaic viewpoint. I'm looking at it from the other side.
Mm-hmm.
It's so good that we snuck away.
Right. I mean, that is fascinating. And also, from what I understand, when it comes to more recent history, your mother's side also had an association with the DuPont family?
Oh, very much so. My mother was a teacher at the elite school called the Pilot School in northern Wilmington. It's where the DuPonts, the Carpenters, and all the Illuminati sent their children for mind control programming and making sure that their children were the next generation of masters. My mother had a student by the name of John DuPont, who was the primary heir of the DuPont fortune back in the 60s. And she mind controlled John DuPont and put a program in him that she described to my father would not activate for 25 years. And 25 years to the day after my mother and father, I remember I used to eavesdrop on their conversations. And 25 years to the day after my mother in 1965 was talking to my father about this mind control program she put in John DuPont, the primary heir of the DuPont fortune. John DuPont went berserk and murdered his best friend, the wrestler Dave Schultz, and spent the rest of his life incarcerated. The plot was my mother was hired by other DuPont family members to do a number on John. And then when he went berserk, the other DuPont family members would go into court and try to seize control of his money due to his insanity. If you look at the court records of the murder trial of John DuPont, that's exactly what happened. The DuPont family members came into court and asked the court to remove John as the beneficiary of the fortune. They wanted him disowned and everything, and they wanted his money. And John had really good lawyers, and he fought them off, and it didn't work. But that's the way the Illuminati are. There is no family. It's a cabal of criminals. These people, they'll eat their own in a heartbeat.
Oh, yeah. I definitely don't doubt that. And we do hear about the elite and various dark occult rituals, usually second or third hand accounts, and they can be pretty vague. But can you tell us about some of the rituals that you were specifically involved in or used in?
Well, how many days do you have? This is the way it goes. In a generational satanic family, your life is not your own. My father was a 9th generation Illuminati, and he told me that I would be 10th generation. My father's family joined the Illuminati in 1720s in Enniskillen, Ireland. During the potato famine, of course, there were 3 brothers who migrated to America. My great-great-grandfather, John, was one of the brothers, and he moved to Philadelphia and started a Illuminati coven. And the other 2 brothers, one went to Elmira, New York, and the other one went to Chicago. And they started dark occult covens and spread the faith of Molech. When you're born into a generational satanic family, it's what Mark Passio and I and my parents called the old religion. It's pre-Atlantean. It's pre-10,000 BC. In fact, my father would call himself many times in the Church of the Marquis of Hell an Atlantean warlock.
Wow.
And of course, we all know about the story of Atlantis, if we're being honest with ourselves, is that it was a cruel, mind-controlled fascist society where scientists were running completely amok. My mother said that the genetic engineering that was going on in Atlantis was like the island of Dr. Moreau.
Wow.
Where they were making chimeras, half human, half animal, and
Yeah.
all sorts of things. So whether the universe struck it down or whether, a comet came and hit the ice caps, and there is plenty of geological evidence of a massive cataclysm at 9600 BC. Two men talk about this. They've written 3 books, and that's Allen and Delaire. And they have Cataclysm 9600 BC, and The Day the Earth Nearly Died is another book. And all I have to say is, if you want to understand the shock, and that's what the human race is under, not only Stockholm Syndrome, which is passed on generation to generation by each successive generation being told the big lie. And that's what our society is. Each generation is told, this is reality, don't look anywhere else, go along to get along, it's all about money, it's not about morals, and here we go.
Right.
That's where we're at. But satanic ritual abuse is you cannot have child rapists, human sacrificers, criminals. I mean, this is a cult of pure evil and criminality. It's not only just the pedophilia and the human sacrifice and the blood drinking. It's also financial, military, corruption, anywhere they can do evil. Anywhere they can steal, rob, and destroy.
Mm-hmm.
That's what these people do. So it's not just a child abuse network. They have their paws on everything.
And there's a magical reason for the things that would have occurred to you in the first 7 years of your life, right? I mean, it's not just getting off on the abuse of children, although I'm sure that has to play a role, but there's also something deeper going on, right?
These people, we live in a field of energy. It's 52 waveforms. It's almost infinitely dense. And Nassim Haramein says it's the density of the energy field we exist in is to the 29th power. So just think in your mind 29 zeros. That's the density of where we're at. And it's called the morphogenic field or the divine field or the quantum field. Rupert Sheldrake has written several books on the morphic field, and they're excellent. I recommend anyone that really wants to know about reality to look into Rupert Sheldrake's work, also Lynn McTaggart, talking about the field. Because when you understand that we're in a field of infinite probability and possibility, and that human consciousness is what makes this intelligent, super energetic. It's almost infinite energy and infinite density, but it is an intelligent field. It truly is a divine field. My mother would talk about it, and she would say it was the goddess. John Lamb Lash, the Gnostic scholar, who has written Not in His Image, a book that is a definite must-read. John Lash's Not in His Image, because it goes into how the Illuminati basically corrupted Christianity and made it into the status quo, anti-spiritual, warmongering machine that it is today. But there are real Christians out there. There are real Muslims. Once you decide that your life is going to be dedicated to natural law and morality, doing the right thing, and the all truth. You're going to follow truth and goodness no matter where it leads. No matter what your society, what your friends say, your family says, you are on the path to higher consciousness and higher morality, which really isn't hard to do in this civilization.
Right.
If you know what I mean.
Of course. And when it comes to those personal experiences, I've heard you say that the scary thing was that you never really knew when your mother or father was going to switch on the evil entity inside of them. And this is something I've heard a lot about, but not really firsthand. I was really curious about the mechanisms there, the details of like your parents' relationship with these particular entities, because this is the crux, I think, of why the elite bloodlines, why the cabal does what it does.
Absolutely. When you're born multi-generational satanic, everyone goes through SRA. Whether you're a Rockefeller, a Rothschild, a DuPont, everybody goes through ritual torture, rape, drugging, satanic rituals to break down the natural consciousness of the human being, warp the synaptic pathways and the body chemistry, and create a secondary psychopath. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
They take gold and turn it into lead.
Mm.
Now, they even shock, and my mother was talking about this, she said, it hurts like hell. They even electroshock the fetus to start warping the synaptic pathways. And to understand, what's going on here, you have to understand that we are epigenetic creatures. And Dr. Bruce Lipton talks about this a lot, Greg, is that what we think and feel affects our biology. It affects our DNA. It affects the entire human race, because each of us in our collective subconscious is knit together in this field of energy. So we all broadcast the sum total of our hearts and minds constantly into the field. The field receives all these signals from the human consciousness and then creates this wonderland that we see as Earth and the universe and whatever. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
Now, all I have to say is I must have been gang raped hundreds of times.
Wow.
I've seen, well, that I can remember, I've probably seen, 5 or 6 human sacrifices. And these people will take a cattle prod to you. In the Church of the Marquis of Hell in Arden, Delaware, where my family raised me, Arden, Delaware, and Rose Valley, Pennsylvania, are 2 occult towns that were founded in 1900. And these 2 towns, Satanists from Philadelphia decided they were going to go out to the country and form a utopian community. And they came out, mostly in Arden, they came out of the Pennsylvania Academy of Fine Arts. And they formed a arts and craft village. And 90% of the people there that I grew up with in the late 50s, 60s, and early 70s, 90% of Arden, Delaware was Satanist, pedophile, Illuminati. And 10% of the people were regular, unknowing people, just regular human beings. And I guess they kept the 10% normal so that if the place ever got revealed, you could always make a claim that, hey, I was one of the 10%.
Right.
I wasn't in the 90. And not only that, but also they like the fact that they have a few people out of the know that they can practice their personas with. Because you really, when you're an Illuminati pedophile, you are an actor for life. Because you have 2 lives. You have your Illuminati life, and then you have your costume that you wear in public.
Right.
So I recommend because this is, I know you brought me on because I'm a teacher. I have spent now over 17 years studying reality, human consciousness, and how we get out of this New World Order of tyranny. And I have to say that I think we're winning and big things are afoot. Okay, I just leave you there with that, because I said several years ago at a conference, a Free Your Mind conference, I said, and this was from the heart, and as I spoke, it was at Free Your Mind too. It was the first time I really talked about my murdered friends in Arden, Delaware. Named some names, and it was a powerful talk, Free Your Mind too, for me. But at the time, I was dating a shaman, and she said, your talk, you were surrounded by higher entities. She said there were light beings all around you. I thought that was nice. It took some courage, Greg. I don't know where I get this courage. I know that when I was 5 years old and I started, because we only have 2 brainwave patterns in the first 7 years of life. And then from like 5 or 6, because of experiential things, you start to see things differently. And then, 6, 7, you get a 3rd brainwave pattern, and you can start to differentiate information that's coming into you. But in the first, basically, 6 years of life, you're in what Dr. Bruce Lipton calls is a hypnagogic trance. And physiologists call this time in your life the programmable state. All the information that your 5 senses is taking in goes right into your subconscious to build what is essentially the hard drive for your life. Now, if you grow up in a satanic family, you're getting bombarded constantly with satanic imagery, satanic ideology, and ways of thinking. So your subconscious is being destroyed, and you're being turned into a secondary psychopath. Now, they do all kinds of rituals, but the thing I talk about to most people now is the fact that why are they abusing these children? Why are they murdering people like this? It produces vast amounts. See, when you have a child, prepubescent child, they're closer to the event horizon of being born out of the field. So they don't have their subconscious built fully. In the first 6 years, you're in the programmable state. Your subconscious is being built. That subconscious, according to Dr. Bruce Lipton and Dr. Joe Dispenza and many other noted physiologists, microbiologists, will tell you that that subconscious runs 95% of your life. Now, 5% of your mentation comes from your conscious mind. And my mother said to me, the most important thing to the Illuminati is the collective subconscious. So they only have maybe 12 to 15% of the population that is generational satanic family. So they have to deal with 85 to 90% of people that if they knew what these people were about, they'd throw them in a cage or worse immediately. And so what they decided to do, these ancient old religion cults of Molech, was they built the religions. And if they didn't build the religion, they infiltrated and corrupted it. Christianity is one of the greatest stories of a religion being corrupted that you'll ever study about. I have a talk at Free Your Mind 3, which gives some great books to read about what happened to Christianity at the Council of Nicaea in 325 AD. But getting back to the main thing I talk about now to most people is you have a conscious mind and a subconscious mind. The subconscious runs 95% of your thoughts, beliefs, actions. Okay? It is the filter that says, I'm going to decode that information. I'm going to ignore that information. Okay? So where did this subconscious come from that we all have? It came from our society. The individual in the hypnagogic programmable state does not make any decisions relating to what's in their subconscious. It's all their parents, their schools, their television, their radios, all that information pouring in. They don't have the ability to discern. They don't have the ability to say, nah, I don't believe that. Until you have a third brainwave pattern, you cannot differentiate any information. Therefore, up until that time you get the third brainwave pattern, you're literally in a trance. So what I state to people is, okay, so the dark occult, and this has taken them a long time to do, but they controlled Atlantis. The planet got blown up. Either the Atlantean scientists did something, or a comet hitting the ice caps, but if you read any of Alan Dallaire's books, you'll see that the Earth went through an incredible cataclysm. In fact, there were probably several.
Mm-hmm.
This put us in a state of shock. The survivors from Atlantis, and if you look at just the biology of the Irish and some of the peoples in Morocco, there's a man by the name of Robert Zephyr, and he has a YouTube channel called Atlantean Gardens. And he does a great talk because with genetic studies, you can actually see the pattern of migration of peoples. And you can see that whoever came out of Atlantis went to Ireland, went to northern Spain, and went to Morocco. Okay, that's just one group that headed east after the thing collapsed. But they're different. Why are they different? There's a heck of a lot of Rh negative. And all I can say is you do a study on Rh negative blood and you will find, that's the high caste Illuminati.
Yeah, it seems to be quite different indeed. We've done a couple shows on that before. And I guess I'm also curious, from what I understand from previous guests, of course, they don't have the firsthand knowledge you do, but it seems like these occultists at some point, they figured out the structure of reality, the structure you've been talking about, and they made a deal with some dark entities to say, hey, look, we figured out the game. How can we work with you? How can we dominate this game? And through that, some type of dark pact was made, some type of possession tradition, in a sense. And do you know when that started, or how far back that tradition of allowing entities to enter into these bodies of multi-generational elites, like when did that really start to get into full swing? Was this post-Atlantis?
No, actually previous to the destruction of Atlantis. John Lash talks about this in some of his podcasts. It was a long process, but I think around 15,000 BC was when the dark arcanic spirits really started making contact. And what they are, they're from the dimension that's right next to our dimension. And so through conjuring or some kind of shamanic things that they were doing, however they did it, a group of people obviously contacted these entities. And then these entities said, oh, I'll teach you how to make yourself king, and I'll teach you to be ruler, and you don't have to work. I'll show you how to build a slave system so that you and your friends will be the kings and everyone else will be your slave. And that's essentially how it happened. And it's no joke that in Canaan, present-day Israel, 1000 BC, they were tossing their kids into flames for Molech. I mean, this is common knowledge. It's in the Bible. I mean, there's no disputing it. A lot of people think that these old religions of the Aztecs, Molech, all over the world after the cataclysm of 9600 BC, thousands of years later, you have the pyramid people, and you go up to the pyramid and get your heart ripped out. Well, this is to appease the gods. What gods are they appeasing? They're appeasing the Anunnaki. My father talked about the Anunnaki to my mother constantly. It was the standard story of reality that the Anunnaki conquered the human race, conquered Earth in 8 minutes, and genetically manipulated the hominins that were here to turn us into a slave species. But I just want to say something about that. There are some scholars that say we were not genetically manipulated, and then others say it's obvious that we were. To get a better handle on this, I recommend looking into the work of Lloyd Pye. Lloyd Pye is now gone. He died of cancer several years ago, but he wrote an excellent book, and he did an excellent presentation that you can probably still find on YouTube called Everything You Know Is Wrong. And he looks at the DNA and the chromosome makeup of human beings, and it ain't right. It's obviously been spliced.
I agree.
Just saying.
Yeah.
Okay. But you know something? The Illuminati are fools. I just want to say that. When I was 5 years old and I realized, just mentally, I realized I didn't have my third brainwave pattern yet, but I had a very high IQ. And I realized that what these people were into, I didn't want anything to do with it. And so there I am in a room full of axe murderers telling them they're wrong. And my mother and father would conjure up this light being entity known as the Marquis of Hell, who controls 40 legions of demons, according to occult theology. And the Marquis of Hell, it was a iridescent, a light body. The light kind of flowed through his body. He had snakes for hair. He was about 6'2", and he did this little weird dance with his arms. Not being an adept, I could not communicate with him. But my mother conjured him up one time at the church, which at that time was situated under the Candlelight Dinner Theater in Arden, Delaware. And she said to me, "That's God." And I looked at her and I said, "That's not God." And she actually got hurt. She pouted and said to me, "Well, that's our God." And there I am, 5 years old, with these really sick individuals saying, "What are you doing? How can you go against nature? How can you do this horrible stuff? Don't you realize what you're doing to your soul? Don't you realize that the father and mother of life is not going to allow this?" Very strange.
Right. And you mentioned this earlier, but it is an aspect of your presentations that I just have found super fascinating, and that is these references to places like Arden, Delaware, and Rose Valley, Pennsylvania. You've referred to them as elite pedophile villages that were set up years ago by a man named William L. Price. I'm sure others as well, but that is just fascinating that there would be these little pockets around the country where the whole town is set up for these people and these purposes, but it kind of makes sense in terms of how you can keep the secret going for so long. And I know you've just experienced a ton of terrible horrors in those first 7 years, witnessed murder, mock burials, plenty of sexual abuse. And I've heard you talk about actually having an entity pulled into your own body. And I'm just so curious what that is like. What does that feel like? Can you tell that there's like some kind of other mind inside you that you're doing battle with? Like, can you explain how that works?
Well, my parents would torture me with electroshock at the base of the spine strapped down to a bench for hours at a time. And the electricity would come up, and literally it was like a sledgehammer hitting your cerebellum. They just want to break you. Whatever they have to do to break you. Just like if you're making a Manchurian Candidate, I mean, they use drugs, they use torture, they use deprivation, they lock you into little boxes. I mean, one of the biggest rituals that SRA victims go through, and it's a major, major event for all SRA generational Satanists, is they will place a child at 3 years old in a wrought iron cage. And I remember this all so well. I was in this cage, and it had a big aluminum pan underneath it because I was sitting with my knees up around my face because I could hardly even move in this cage. And they leave you there for like 3 days. You know, you've cried yourself hoarse, you've screamed for help, nobody's coming. And then my father walks into the room, and I'm like, oh, it's Daddy, I'm saved. Only it's not Daddy, it's my father in full fourth dimensional demon mode. And when I looked at him and saw that he was in his satanic manifestation and his entity had full control over him, Greg, I could literally feel my brain breaking in half. It was so crushing. And with that splitting of my consciousness, of course, then it gives them an opportunity to program alters. I had about 7 alters. There were times in my life that my consciousness was like a broken channel changer. I mean, someone would say hi to me, and I would flip through personalities and try to figure out what he meant by hi.
Wow.
I mean, we're talking really beat up. And I was buried alive, and I went through just my heart ripped out and given to the Temple of Molech. And just one of the rituals that, besides the 3-year-old in a cage, another ritual that all SRA victims go through is a brutal human sacrifice, axe murder, that is blamed on the child. And what they do is they put you in my case, they transported a girl about 16 years old from Long Beach, California, another hotbed of occult activity. They drugged her, transported her in a trunk of a car all the way to Arden, Delaware. Bernie Brockman, the town veterinarian, opens the trunk. This girl is in there wrapped in blankets. She's obviously drugged. They brought her into the church. They cleaned her up. They had a shower in the church because sometimes you just have to wash the blood off you, you know? And they had me and her kind of do some adolescent sexual activity. And then they put me into a trance because they wanted me to bond to her, okay? Then they put me in a trance, and when they woke me up out of the trance, she was eviscerated and choking on her blood, her last few gasps of life. And all the adults around who had chopped her arms and legs off and stabbed her 100 times laughed at me and said, "Look what you did, you butcher." And I was so shocked at what I saw, I had an out-of-body experience. And my mother, and I was inconsolable. I was flipping out. And I remember my mother saying to me, "What are you so upset about? We didn't hurt her. She'll just go back to the mainframe, get a new body. her spirit, her consciousness is fine. All we did was destroy her avatar in this holodeck. One of the rituals the Illuminati do, and not everybody is successful in this ritual, but they get around you either through trance or the energy of the groupthink, but they can make you have an out-of-body experience where you see these 2.5, 350-foot tall, glowing light blue pyramids that have these large boulders of onyx under them. And it has a black sky just like the Matrix movie. The only light you see is emanating from these light blue pyramids. And the feeling you get from looking at this scene is one of total malevolence. It's like, oh, the Watchers. And that's what I thought when I saw this blue pyramid experience with the cult. I didn't know what the Watchers were, but when I saw this scene, it's weird. That was the word that came to my mind, the Watchers. And then after about 15, 20 seconds, they bounced me back to the Marquis of Hell Church in Arden. There were about 8 adults around. They said, well, now you see, it's not real. And my parents had discussions about the fact that this reality is, as John Lash says, a simulacra. It is a simulation. All I can say is, I really don't care that it's a simulation. I think it's important to understand, maybe there's several theories I have about how we got into this computer program in this 52 waveform intelligent energy field that reacts to every heartfelt thought and feeling the human race has and tries to build a world for us to exist in. And one of the stories my mother told me was the Earth was destroyed accidentally by a very high race in the universe, in the real universe. And so what they did was, realizing that there were billions of consciousnesses attached to this planet that they made uninhabitable and killed all these people, they decided, well, we have the technology, we'll build a replica of the real universe. They'll never know that it's a holodeck, and they'll be able to live out their lives like normal.
Wow.
Which, you would think, hey, that's a pretty fair deal.
Yeah.
Now, you have to understand, if they destroyed our planet, if they didn't know we were there and they were doing something like the Vogons creating a hyperspace bypass, that's from Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
If they didn't know who we were or what we were about or what we looked like, what could you do? You had to build a construct that took the consciousness, thoughts, and feelings and produced a reality out of it. And so that's how they produced a perfect simulacra of the real universe. And then later on, it got invaded by fourth dimensional entities, and off we went to the races.
Wow, that is just such a fascinating paradigm, such an amazing cosmology. I think it's very interesting. And I've heard you talk about the place of the blue pyramids before, and that is also really interesting because it's like, if we are in some form of hologram, there must be a place that it's projected from, and maybe that is the place. And I'm really sorry you had to go through so much crazy stuff in that first 7 years, but I've never really heard you talk about how you got out of the cult or what happened to your parents and your bloodline, because you'd assume like you're not supposed to be out there talking about this stuff, or there's still going to be some people in your network that are alive. Like, how did you get out of such a situation, and what happened to your bloodline and assumably the wealth associated with it and all that stuff?
Well, my parents were both teachers, Greg. They went to Dickinson College in Carlisle, Pennsylvania, which is a CIA Illuminati college. just total cult up there. That's why George Bush calls his corporation the Carlyle Group. And that's where the War College is. Lovely area. My mother told me that one time I was asking her, I said, how come all these cities have TON on the end, like Wilmington, Boston, Trenton, right? What is this TON? It's not town. What is it, right? And she said, it's us, essentially what she said. What I want to say about this is whenever you see a town with a TON at the end, you have to think of a Tau cross and On, the Egyptian city of On, okay? It's a signal to any dark occultist that in the founding of that government, of that settlement, were dark occultists. That doesn't mean it's 100% or 90% like Arden. What it means is they are running the show there. They're the 10 to 15% that control the levers of power in our society to keep the masses dumbed down and supplying the elite with money. It's a scary thought because if you look at a map and see all the towns that end with TON, you get my drift.
Yeah, there's a lot.
So I tell an interesting story that my mother told me, Greg, about the admiral's son, William Penn, the Quaker. Now, on top of City Hall in Philadelphia is a statue of William Penn, who came to Philadelphia, founded Philadelphia with the Quakers, and was given the land grant of Pennsylvania by the King of England. And the story that we're all told is Penn was an admiral's son that rebelled against the Illuminati because ever since Henry VIII, England has been in total control by the Illuminati. He was the King of England that sold out to the Venetian bankers. And I just want to say that his statue, William Penn, has a scroll in his right hand. In Freemasonry, that means you have deep occulted knowledge, okay? You know the whole story. And then in his left hand, he has a carpet bag. He has a bag. Why don't people, when they look at William Penn above City Hall, say to themselves, have you ever seen a statue of somebody and they've got a carpet bag? They're holding a bag. You know what I mean? Think about it. You don't see it, do you?
No.
And my mother said to me, every warlock has a bag. That's where they keep their spell books, their drugs, their torture devices. So there you go. William Penn was controlled opposition, okay? They pretended to be anti-king, anti-control system. But, you know, just like many churches, just like what we're seeing in society today, we're seeing that at the top, there's just these people with absolutely no morals whatsoever. And that's the way it is with the Quaker religion. The mass of people are good people and have no idea that they're actually supporting a dark occult cabal. It's sad.
It is sad. And so, have your parents passed at this point, I'm sure? Did you have any siblings or?
Well, I don't know if my father's still alive. As far as I know, he'd be like 90.
Right.
He was alive 2 years ago, as far as I know. As soon as I broke my programming, I would have nothing to do with anyone in my family.
Right. Makes sense.
Because the chance of them rebooting my program, which my oldest brother tried to do one time, I learned just stay away.
Right.
Now, you're probably, a lot of people, you know, say, how come you're alive, Jay?
Right.
I mean, you're not allowed to talk about this.
Seems rare.
It is rare, but there are rules in the universe. And when you abuse a child before the age of 6 and they tell you, leave me alone, and you don't leave them alone, that gets the big guy involved. Okay? So essentially, they raped my best friend, Brandon Ploner, when I was in first grade. I was 7 years old. He went septic and died in 3 days. They sent the town veterinarian, Bernie Brockman, to see if they could help, but the dog healer could not save Brandon's life. And so he died. So I knew Brandon was dying. I had heard my parents talk about this. So I jumped out of the window of my house and ran to Brandon's house just in time to see Bernie Brockman put Brandon's body, which was wrapped in a green tarp with brass eye hooks, into his trunk. And then Bernie saw me, and that's the last thing I remember about that, but I'm sure it didn't go well for me. So they had a situation where I was rebelling. I was telling my parents I wanted to be adopted out. I won't say anything about what you're doing here. Just adopt me out. Say you're both school teachers. You can't afford to put off me and my 2 brothers through college, and you got to get rid of one of the kids. I know it's silly, but that's the only thing I could come up with at 7 years old. My parents were rather shocked at this, like, oh boy, we've got a live one. And my mother said to me, boy, they really broke the mold when they made you. I had discussions with spirit beings before I came in here. And, they give you a life review. They talk about your progress in consciousness and ask you what kind of life you want to have. Many people don't remember anything, but some people get a little bleed through. So they gave me a talk about, this is your last 3 lives. You've been with the same woman. She's been directly responsible for your death, blah, blah, blah. And I was shown a cobra and a rose. That was a symbol of, fatal attraction. So I'm in line and I said, well, I love her, maybe next time it'll work out, blah, blah, blah. And as I'm in line to incarnate here, I was like, you know something? I got to change this. So I jumped ahead in line, and the spirit guides said to me, you're going in too soon. This isn't the life that they had planned for me. Okay? And I said, I just want to get this over. And my attitude was, I understood the earth was a consciousness training ground. And if you really look at it that way, that's what it is. You get to choose between ultimate good and ultimate evil. And Michael Tsarion talks a lot today about we are here to grow our souls. We are here, to learn and grow in consciousness, in godliness, And I had a revelation right from the spirit of the holodeck, of the divine matrix in 2006, just after I started doing EFT, which has been a miracle for me. I'm going to talk about that in a moment. But, it just hit me like a ton of bricks. Life is for growth in consciousness. It's for growth in wisdom and knowledge. It's not about money. It's about the heart and soul of truly being a divine being. If you're doing anything else than making consciousness and morality your number one focus, you're ripping yourself off. Because once you dedicate yourself to the all truth, the universe is going to find you and the universe is going to teach you. And it's not going to be pleasant all the time because we live in a society of people suffering from Stockholm Syndrome who believe what the TV says. Well, why don't they believe what the TV says? I mean, they've been sitting since 2 years old, being subjected to thousands of audio and visual subliminals given to you by your loving Illuminati government. Their subconscious has been, in the Illuminati, you get hard programming, but the rest of the culture gets soft programming. But we all end up with Stockholm Syndrome.
Right. And there's also programming in the military, of course. That'd be a middle ground, I guess, between the broad manipulation in the mainstream culture and what you've experienced. But yeah, it's there too. They break you down. And man, just a serious bunch of heavy issues today, man. You really did bring a lot to the table. And I rarely speak with someone who's been so close to the machine like this. It's been a real pleasure. And you do just a great job of breaking all this stuff down. And energy does seem to be the name of the game.
Well, I do want to thank you for having me on. It's difficult for me in 2 hours to talk about everything I know. With my new website that I'm building, I'm going to do videos where I get to break down these issues finer and make it more easy for people to understand. I do have a radio show on the web, and it's on Revolution Radio, which you can find at freedomslips.com. It's on Thursday night, 10 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. It's called The Center Path, and it's a 2-hour show, and I deal with consciousness. And then the next week, I do my other activism, and I call the show Matrix Warriors, and I interview people who are activists and actually doing things to wake humanity up. We're going to win, Greg. We're winning. We're winning.
I hope.
Those NSA white hats are going to bring the Illuminati down because Trump has the military behind him, and they're fed up of these psychopaths using our troops as cannon fodder.
Well, I hope you're right. I mean, I'm a little more skeptical of anyone who makes it to the president's seat, even if they are backed by a different sector of the pie. I guess I just worry that their motives aren't altruistic either. But
well, they're not. His motive is, he's telling the world leaders, and they're all saying yes, is don't go into these multinational slave institutions. Keep your sovereignty and be who you are.
Right.
I mean, the EU is a disaster. It's a disaster. And everybody in the world, especially in Asia, is looking at the EU and saying, we're not going there. What do you got for us, Trump? And Trump's gone, well, I got my buddy Putin and my homeboy Xi, and we're going to rip the Illuminati.
That was one other thing I did want to touch on before we left, is before we started recording, we were talking about the QAnon NSA insider and those cryptic messages. I'm just curious, with your expertise, do you think that is something legitimate? Do you think there's actual meat on those bones?
I've looked into it fairly well. It could be a extremely sophisticated nothing burger, but I don't think so. I love the fact that the way Q is doing his information drops is he's asking people questions, which is forcing them to get answers and put truth in their mind. I have nothing but hope, and I'm telling you right now, the universe told me that it's going to be okay. If those of us who have some knowledge of truth and understand that we have to get active, we have to tell people about the vaccination, about the corruption, about Bitcoin and ways we can get around the central banks. We have to come together, all right, as brother and sister and be human again. So remember, you're always broadcasting 4 million bits of information per second out of your conscious mind and 40 million bits of information out of your subconscious mind. Your subconscious is 10 times more powerful than your conscious mind. That's why if people have a habit pattern that they're trying to change and it won't change, they go, how come I keep making the same mistake? How come I keep dating the same bad woman? It's because you haven't tapped it out, baby. Learn to do EFT and become who you really want to be. And there are EFT videos all over the place, miraculous physical healings, emotional healings. Learn it. It'll be your best friend for life.
I'm hoping so. Maybe that will help me with my intense resistance to exercise. Wouldn't that be great?
There you go.
Yeah. So awesome, man. I really did enjoy this. And we did talk about your websites, gave out some links. Is there anything else to say about follow-up or people's ability to support you in some way? Anything else to throw out to them in that regard?
Not really right now, no. I mean, I did have, in fact, it's still up. I had a U-carrying to get like $4,000 so I could get cannabis oil for my Lyme's disease. And that was successful. I treated myself with cannabis oil, and I no longer have Lyme's disease.
Wow. That's just amazing. I always think about, I have these guests on, they talk about these things, and it just takes such immense strength when you're actually confronted with one of these diseases, with something like cancer, to say, fuck the mainstream system, I'm going alternative. It's very hard because there's so much pressure, and a lot of people in your family are probably going to be telling you to go one way, and it's just an intense situation. And to have the strength to stick to your guns, stick to your convictions, it's a beautiful thing. And thanks so much for being here. I hope people take a lot of this to heart. Almost a decade of torture and abuse is really a rough way to come into the world, but you seem to be in a good place now, and that's really all you can do. So big thanks again. Huge pleasure to make your acquaintance. Intense stuff, and do take care of yourself out there.
Okay, thank you, Greg.
You got it. Wow, guys. Jay Parker. What more can you say but wow. Definitely a lot to take in, and a deep, dark, personal story for sure. Graphic at times. But it is my impression that this sort of abuse in elite circles happens quite often, or at least sometimes, even to mind-blowing proportions if you think the figures that Jay cited are even half right. But because I do think it happens sometimes, I think it's reasonable to suggest that we would occasionally get people who could speak from personal experience. Not often, of course. In fact, I think it's very rare. And I'm sure how you feel about today's show, I guess, would hinge on how you view Jay's story. But I think he's a pretty genuine guy. Some part of our private conversation makes me feel that way even more so. And Jay, of course, is not the first guest we've had who talks about MKUltra programming and ritual abuse in their personal background. I think he'd be around number 4 or 5 over the years, maybe even 6 or 7. And to me, Jay resonates as the most sincere and most believable of that crowd. It's far out stuff, no doubt. It is a lot to take in, but I don't think he's out to deceive anybody. And even if you think the personal aspects are a bit hard to swallow, I think he's a good disseminator of information. If you listen to his presentations or even a lot of this interview, it's like, what are Jay's go-to areas of importance? Who does Jay recommend you check out? Well, Bruce Lipton, Rupert Sheldrake, the Thunderbolts Project, the Electric Universe Model, Rick Simpson Oil, and Mark Passio, who I actually hope to finally get on the Higher Side Chats in the coming months. But all of these people are really high up on my list of recommendations too, which is just another reason why I like what Jay has to say. Those are great resources that I think are high quality and comprise a good chunk of my worldview. But as for the interactions between the elite and the archonic entities of their possession, Jay's experience, while it sounds pretty wild, is pretty in line with where I am conceptually with my best guess of what the relationship looks like. Just go back and listen to what Peter Mark Adams describes in the Solabushka Tarachi episode. And I don't think everyone in power is partaking in this sort of sacrament, but some definitely are. And there's a strata of the power pyramid reserved for occultists, I'm sure. I think if you look at a lot of these dudes' pictures in the criminal class, they look possessed to me. Either way, I hope you dug this one too. I tried to get deeper into some things with Jay, but still cover a lot of ground, and With some guests, even 2 hours doesn't feel like much. You really are doing yourself a disservice, dear listener, if you are a fan of this show and you're only hearing the first half. And I know everyone wants podcasts to be free, but you gotta remember that the only things in life that you get to enjoy without contributing to are usually getting their payment in some other ways, manipulating you with advertising, or it's corporate programming, which is aimed at pushing certain culture-changing agendas as well as the advertising, or the company behind whatever it is selling your data. That's how people are making money these days. Otherwise, pretty much everything else you enjoy, you probably contribute to, and usually more than $5 a month. So I hope you consider it, because you're missing out on a lot. Today's second hour got into trauma healing and EFT, which, by the way, there was a part in the show where Jay referred to childhood ritual experiences of having his heart ripped out, and we sort of glossed over it, but I heard Jay talk about that deeper in other interviews. And of course, it's not literal, but the ritual is refined to make the child think the heart has been ripped out. And that stuck out in my mind because of some of the conversation with Michael Joseph, right? Where he explained the paradigm that affecting the consciousness is more important than making something literally happen. Like the example was the moon landing in that context. Which is true on even a base level, right? That overall premise. And I'm going to use a December-related example that you might not want the kids to hear, which is not a warning I would typically give out, but a few emails from people who listen to THC with their kids are fresh in my mind, and hopefully they maybe realize this isn't an episode for the whole family, or maybe it is. But either way, fair warning. In regards to imprinting a belief on the collective consciousness being more important than someone literally doing something or something literally being true, there is no Santa Claus, but we definitely alter the behavior and mindset of children by cultivating the belief. And it's like every faction is just trying to drape their blanket of influence over the minds of the people in the big scheme of things. And it's not some bold realization about magic, really. It's a pretty fundamental concept. It works for something as simple as the war on terror. It's all perception management. But I guess I'm only saying that it seems like it applies to magic just as much as anything. And we sometimes think magic is so amorphous and hard to define, but maybe it isn't. In fact, I listened to a great episode of Skeptico recently that had Gordon on, and Alex was kind enough to even use a THC clip in the intro. And it was a great show, but to paraphrase one thing Gordon said, kind of defining magic, is that magic is a cultural expression of natural effects of consciousness. I'm sure he said that here as well. But I just think it's important to remember that magic isn't all pentagrams and cloaked chanting. That might be part of it. But if magic works, it has to be a natural part of interfacing with reality. And that is kind of the crux of things. We just kind of forgot about magic in a big way, I guess. And of course, I think it's suppressed, but point being, consciousness is primary and belief is key. And if you make a kid feel like his heart is being ripped out, you probably get the same level of energetic trauma and pain that you're looking to create. And that makes sense to me. But yeah, in the Plus show, we talked about trauma healing, EFT, modern day pedophiles and sex abuse and trafficking scandals. We also got into mind control and Joseph Mengele in Missouri of all places. We got into the scope of the overall network. Also Jay's shapeshifter experience, what he thinks the next phase in the big cult's plan might be, and topped it off with the power of Rick Simpson oil. We got into a lot of other great stuff as well. It was a real pleasure having Jay on. I hope you found his perspective useful and interesting. And we're closing out today with the last of the new songs from Lauren Silva with Greg Carlwood lyrics. And not to counter Jay's positive and hopeful message about us winning towards the end there, but this song is fairly dire, but it's tongue-in-cheek. It's supposed to be a little over the top, so don't write me about promoting fear. Comedy is the best antidote to power. Have you ever laughed at authority? It sort of breaks them down in a powerful way. Anyway, just think of it like that. Here we go. New song. I'm out of here. Thanks, Jay. I've done my part. Your move, Archonic Entities, and the Power Pyramid horses you rode in on. Your fucking move.
This is important. Hear what I said. I'm trying to tell you. It's not paranoia, not in my head. It's just the hard truth. knocked on your door while I still can to ask you a question, 'cause I know your head is still in the sand. Don't be sheep to your slaughter for the rest of your life. Oppressed, but you're getting woke. You say you don't want to be stressed until the day you die. Tough luck, my friend. Did you get the memo? Can't you see that we're so screwed? Don't you know we're our kung food? Can't you just admit we're screwed? I'm gonna tell you this anyway. It's a scary dark world, scarier every day. Scary dark world, no matter what you say. Scary dark world, don't think we'll be okay. Can't you see that we're so screwed? You sit and wish, but we don't have a choice. It seems we're stuck here, but you can find notes to drown out the noise. Now use that altar and up your magic game and listen to THC, you know. You go with the entities. If you ever see the UFO, don't be sheep to your slaughter for the rest of your life. Oppressed, but you're getting woke. You say you don't want to be stressed until the day you die. Tough luck, my friend. Did you get the memo? Can't you see that we're so screwed? Don't you know we're our kung food? Can't you just admit we're screwed? I'm gonna tell you this anyway. It's a scary dark world, scarier every day. Scary dark world, no matter what you say. Scary dark world, don't think we'll be okay. Can't you see that we're so for the rest of your life. Oppressed, but you're getting woke. You say you don't want to be stressed until the day you die. Tough luck, my friend. Did you get the memo? Can't you say that we're